I just put together a new book, especially for the holiday season. If you don't have gifts yet, I got you guys. But all jokes aside, I want to talk today about the things that have influenced me the most, not just in my writing, but in my life and my outlook and my overall philosophy on how I approach things, on how I deal with things, on how I rationalize things, because I think all these authors have a unique side of life that they are able to put into words in a way that other people can't quite one understand, in the sense that, like, once you hear it, you're like, it clicks and it makes sense, and two, it's just the artistry about it and the beauty behind it and the inspiration behind it. So here is the list of authors. I'm going to go through them all individually, but I'll just give you a list right now so that there's no suspense. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is this book I have right here. Is, I think it said Ficciones, or it's Fictions and Other. When it's translated, it's just titled Fictions. My version is Ficciones, but you'll see it as both. But this is Jorge Luis Borges, and Borges is fascinating. I include this book because I think this is his best work, and I think this is often cited as his best work. But you read Borges, and there's a depth to him. There's a spirit to him. There's something that is so profound and so inspiring and just all over the place. And I think Borges, through his unique style and his ability to talk about so many different subjects, is able to grasp life at a level that most people don't quite understand. And the thing about Borges's writings is there's two main themes. Is that there's this labyrinth, in the sense that, like, there's this never-ending path, there's this never-ending maze that we're trying to figure out our ways through, and there's a infinite amount of circumstances. And this is really his allegory for what life is that it's one labyrinth of decisions and actions and things that we all take. And in fact, the greatest story is the one of humanity, the one of the labyrinth. And it's such an interesting idea. But the other thing that strikes me about Borges' writing is the ability for him to create these worlds. It almost feels like Borges is able to capture the dreamlike nature of life better than any other author, aside from perhaps James Joyce. And one of his stories in particular, he creates an entire mythos, an entire civilization, an entire world, creates this, like, basically fake Bible, fake kind of manuscript that is this mythic thing that was lost to centuries and now is returned, and goes into all these details about the society that didn't even exist. And you find yourself reading this and you're like, wait, this isn't real. This is something that he completely made up just for the purpose of the story, and you're just completely tantalized. And yeah, that's really what I love about Borges, and his ability to just blur the lines of dreams and reality, and kind of tie those two together, and kind of tie that to the human experience. The next thing I think particularly influences me is Emerson. I think Emerson is one of the best philosophers, authors, just people in general of all time. I think his messaging can help absolutely everybody, and the central idea of his philosophy is that if you have yourself, you have everything you need. If you are yourself in every moment, if you pursue only the things that make you happy, then you don't need anything else from anybody. And that's a central theme of all of my writing. It's a central theme of all of my life, is that I spend my time and energy pursuing myself, pursuing the things that bring me fulfillment, do the things that really speak to me, and really give me the happiness that, I feel like I'm hoping for and I'm longing for. And just evaluating my circumstances, evaluating the decisions I make. Am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing it because I've been pushed this way, because I've been taught this way, because I've been steered in a certain direction by comments, by the things that people tell me, by the world in general, by the consensus. And, idea that always sticks with me is that to be yourself in a world that seeks conformity is the greatest achievements. And I think that encapsulates Emerson perfectly. And I think if you live your life by that one message, you will live a tremendous life. And if you've read anything by me, if you've listened to anything I've ever said, I think that speaks to me the best out of anything else that I could say. The next thing that has heavily influenced me is Khalil Gibran. And Gibran has a lot of similar ideas to Borges, to Emerson. I think all great minds, all great poets kind of are the same. It's just they use different examples. They use their own experiences to kind of unfold the one universal truth, the one universal language of poetry. But Essentially, what I love so much about Gibran is his ability to put things in perspective, his ability to experience, in one hand, the greatness of life, and in the other hand, the tragedy of life, and how that intersection gives the meaning to life, how that the necessity for bad to appreciate the good, and all sorts of ideas like that. And Gibran just, you can't read him and not say this is one of the most fascinating things that I've ever read. And, in particular, I urge you to read Sand and Foam by Gibran. I think that's his best work, to me at least personally. Tears and Laughter is another really good one. And perhaps his most famous is The Prophet. That's certainly the one that, if you know who he is, you know about this book. But yeah, overall, tremendous author. I love his style, and he kind of blurs the lines between poetry and stories and philosophy and aphorisms. And you know if you know anything about me, whenever you blur the lines of genres, that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. The next thing that influenced me heavily is The Power of Awareness, or in more grand terms, Neville Goddard and his ideas, his teachings. And when you talk about Neville Goddard, you get into like a category of stuff that like I don't like to go into, because I think it's very simplistic. I think it's very one track mind, in the sense of like, if you go online, most of the focus on new age sort of ideas is about making money, is about changing who you are, is about all sorts of things like this, where to me Neville represents the power of creativity, the power of accessing yourself without limitations, accessing your mind and accessing your motivation and your energy without being bounded by, well, I can't do this, well, I can't do that. And a lot of Neville's teachings are taken out of context. I think they're taken in the wrong sense, and I think they're made to be more physical than they need to be. Whereas when I read Neville, it's purely inspirational, it's purely metaphysical, it's purely, well, if I believe I can do something, and then I start trying to approach it, and I don't listen to that voice in the back of my head telling I can't do it, I can't do it because of this, I can't do it because of this. If I go into the project knowing that I've already done it, knowing that it's already possible, then how much better could it be? And that sort of mindset is something that's allowed me to really put my best foot forward, really put my best foot forward into videos, or into my writing, into the books that I've published already. I have 2 books published. Isn't that weird to say? It's a very weird thought to have. I feel like it's something I've always wanted to do, but it's just, for whatever reason, I didn't. And now one of my dreams is accomplished. But with that said, yeah, I love Neville, and there is a whole lot of stuff in there. And in particular, I love the way Neville talks about Blake. And without Neville, I don't think I would have discovered Blake, at least not as soon as I did. But the next thing we have is Rilke. This is a guy that I've actually recently discovered, but in finishing up my latest work, which is just a book of poetry. But my latest work is essentially very similar to what Rilke was writing, and I'm reading these aspects, and I'm like, you know what, this is a tremendous way to put this. This is something that I feel like I could write if I put more energy into it and I put more effort into. And there's just a way that he's able to put things so profoundly yet so simply. And I don't know if it's just the translation, but when I'm reading the introduction to his work, it says in German, originally he uses AB rhyme scheme. So you can tell that it's a very simplistic writing style, but he hits depths at a level that few other authors could hope to do. And there's just a soul, there's just a heart to the way that he speaks, and he's not using these grand analogies, he's not using these grand symbols. He's using these very simplistic ways to describe the nature of the infinite, and it's so beautiful. And that's just really, really what inspires me, because I don't think life's complex. I don't think life is this thing that is beyond our comprehension. I think it's something that we understand, but when we try to describe, we take it out of context. We try to define the infinite, and if you try to define the infinite, you always end up missing everything. You try to put something that is very exquisite into a small box, you're going to have to trim off the edges, and you're going to have to lose some meaning and some depth and some purpose. But yeah, he's just another author that I feel like if you read the stuff I write, you can certainly see the influence. Last thing is William Blake, and to me, I think Blake might be the biggest inspiration I have, because I find myself reading Blake and I find myself agreeing more than I agree with any other author. I don't write particularly in the same style as Blake. Blake likes to use contrast. He likes to use examples. He likes to use these basically mythic God-esque characters in order to show his examples. I like to use very simplistic, if anything, metaphors or similes. And that would be the main difference between me and Blake. But I feel like when I read William Blake, I read somebody that has the exact same beliefs as me, somebody that has the exact same ideas, and somebody that approaches life in the same context of, if you are unbounded by your perception, if you're unbounded by the things that you think are set in stone, then you can accomplish anything in this world. And to me, it's just, you read Blake, and there's like a warmth in your heart. There's a feeling. There's a liberation. There's a spirit that becomes free when you read Blake, and that's something that I try to recapture in my own writing. And yeah, with that said, here are the biggest influences on my life, on my writing, on the things that I believe and how I carry myself into this world. And it's interesting. Maybe these names will change at some point. Maybe these people won't inspire me the way that they inspire me now, but with the time being, I think these ideas are driving me in the right direction, and maybe if you want to pick them up, go ahead, pick them up. But if you just enjoyed hearing me talk about the things that I like, then I know you're gonna like to hear what I write, because I feel like I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, because I'm able to slow it down. When I speak, it's just extemporaneous and it's just off the top of my head, where if I write, I think a second time, I think a third time, not a fourth, but it's very stream of consciousness the way I write, but I think you'll enjoy it. And the book is called Epitaphs. I have another book that's called Collected Works, which is just me, my first delving into writing and my first delving into different styles. And I think Epitaphs is a lot better. So if you picked up the first book, then you're gonna like the second one. And yeah, just a set of poems about the nature of things, and the set of poem about my experience with things. And yeah, I think you guys are going to enjoy it. With that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. The link to those books will be in the description. Peace out. I will